Shalom, and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of Rabbi Adam Kligfeld's weekly Rashi study class.
Okay, Matt, eat the mic, because apparently that's going to be a little bit better, and read Pasuk Kaf Daled, bevakasha.
Okay. Ushmartem et hadavar azeh lechak lecha levanecha ad olam.
And just to correct the pronunciation, that there's no way you'd know unless you know it, the kamatz under the chet of chak is a kamatz katan, so it's chok. It's really the word chok. Chok is a O sound, but when it's hyphenated, it's no longer a stress sound, so it goes from a long syllable to a short syllable, and the short O is a kamatz katan, l'chok lecha. I have it that we did. Yeah, that we look back to when Yaakov uses the word netano to meaning permit as opposed to give. I think so. Okay, translate, Matt.
And you shall keep this matter.
Can you guys hear Matt?
And you shall keep this matter. I don't know what lechok lecha means. It says institution.
It's better than yours.
I don't know what it means. Ulevanecha ad olam.
What's a chok, Matt?
I mean, for you, it's a law. Okay, a law?
A law, right? Why does chok mean law? What does the root mean? Lachkok means to engrave, right? So a chok is something that is established, engraved, permanent in law, right? And in like the theory of different mitzvot, there are chukim and mishpatim, right? Mishpatim from the root shafat, meaning judgment, rational laws that almost any society would set up a version of, and chukim are ones that have no explanation. They've just been engraved by the engraver, right? So, but sometimes the word chok just means law. It doesn't necessarily mean that kind of a mitzvah. It just means law. And lachok lacha is hyphenated. How would you kind of render that?
Okay, so you'll keep
up twice as close to your mouth. Eat it.
As a law to you,
right?
As your own law or something like that, and to your descendants, your children, forever.
Good. Okay, and we have been moving. Rachel Norm is logging in, so he made it home.
I just texted like where?
Yeah, no, he's home. So we've been moving from instructions for the night of Exodus to to Pesach and perpetuity. You should guard, protect, keep this thing as a law for you and to your children. It says sons means your children forever. Okay. Any questions or comments on the verse? And Norm, if you can hear us ready, I'm so sorry that the elevator went out again. It's been a rough couple months for it. We're replacing the entire thing eventually, but until we replace the entire thing eventually, we have to deal with it going in and out, and I apologize. Okay, we'll go around. The first four. Let's bring a microphone. Larry, and I see your hand, Rick.
So why don't we? I mean, it's very clear that this ritual, that this thing, Devar,
Yep.
is the splashing of the blood on the lintel and the doorpost.
Yeah. Meaning, how did it come to be that the post-temple observance of these verses has nothing to do with these verses? Yeah. I mean, you don't think a roasted parsnip that you put on the Seder plate is a sufficient actualization of these verses?
Or at least we should have his.
Or a lamb as a sacrifice.
Yeah.
Many years ago, we ate. I'm taking it literally. We ate lamb until we understood that Ashkenazim don't do that.
Yeah, like Dafka don't, right?
Right.
Okay, you kind of touched
I
up.
assume, Larry, your question was rhetorical, or did you want an answer?
I just wanted to point out
Yeah.
that the preceding verses.
Right. It does seem clear that this is the expectation ad olam. There's going to be a little bit in verse 25 in the commentaries on it that suggests that there is some context in which even the Torah anticipated these laws to obtain, and perhaps by silence to not obtain. But your question is better than any answer. Tova?
You sort of touched on this already, but it's been bugging me. In Silberman, he translates Batechem as sons, but just a few verses down, he translates B'nei as children. And I'm just always provoked by how those words are translated. As we go along, could you note any reason why he would make that distinction, which seems rather pointed?
In this verse, he says sons, and in the later verse, he says
And
children?
in the,
Which verse does he say children?
Vayomru, v'haya ki yomru alechem b'neichem ma ha'avodah hazot lachem. Your children shall say to you, what is this avodah that you do? It's just 2 verses down.
It could be a nothing. The only thing I can think of, and I have no idea, is that in our verse, we're talking about a positive commandment, which he might understand will devolve upon the men and only the men. And in verse 26, we're talking about the curiosity of your children when they see you doing it. And maybe he's translating that to suggest that any of your children will ask the question and deserve an answer, but on whom does this mitzvah rest? The men. It could be that. I have no idea. Carl, and then Rick.
So I partly had the same question of what is this thing that we're supposed to do forever? Simple answer, well, we're not smearing blood anymore. But if you go back a couple verses, it's also describing the slaughtering of the lamb and eating it. So maybe that's the thing we still do forever, except we don't either.
Right. For a divine command with an expectation of performance, it's rather vague. Davar is the most anodyne word we have, the thing, right? So the thing might be all of the things we've discussed in the previous verses coming up. It might be just one aspect of it. Clearly, the thing is not leaving Egypt, right? It doesn't say do this ritual every year. It can't possibly go back to Egypt and leave again. So it's left up to Midrash to determine what that meant practically. It's a good question. Rick?
Hi. I was noticing that it goes to the singular lecha, where before it had v'higatem plural, touch it, and ve'atem lo tetzu, all of you don't go out in plural. And here it could have been written the ushmartem is plural, but it could have just said everybody should keep it forever. It didn't have to go lechok lecha and then uvanecha. So my drash is that it's all individual. What each person wants to do is the lecha part of things.
Yes, we are all individuals. Yeah. I'm not. Anyone? Life of Brian? Monty Python? Am I by myself out here on the limb? Thank you, Rebecca. Right, even within the verse, Ushmartem et davar hazeh, all of you have to observe this. Who? Lechok lecha, for you individually, ulvanecha, and your single person sons. Right? I did not check the Mechalta. There's got to be midrash in this. There's got in the same way that the midrash likes to talk about why some of the verbs at Ma'amad Har Sinai suggested that every person experienced that God was speaking to them individually as opposed to a collective, right? There's got to be material that specifically deals with that contrast. Is that Hector? Hey, Hector, come on in. Zoomers, tell Hector so we can hear what you're experiencing. Nothing apparently.
It's not smooth.
Nothing.
Yes, it was smooth a second ago.
Hold on, one at a time.
A second ago,
Elon,
it was
and
smooth, and then it became.
Elon?
Yeah, so the two things. It's still choppy at times, not always, and the delay between the moving of the mouth and the hearing of the audio has actually gotten worse. So that even really? Godzilla would be like, "No, we can't do this."
Barbara, you agree that's the issue? It's like choppy and there's a delay? Any idea why there'd be a time delay, Hector?
Yeah, that will be, we're going to have to do...
And it was the same delay last week.
Yeah, so we were going to have to, from now on, I'm going to plug in that computer to hardwire.
Okay.
That is the Wi-Fi.
So the delay is the Wi-Fi, and that the Wi-Fi generally does fluctuate in this building, unfortunately, so he's going to try to hardwire it for next time. Why it's choppy, I'm not sure. But what do you mean by choppy? Like it goes in and out of you actually hearing a voice?
It's only your microphone, so it's probably just the battery you get in your microphone.
Do you have another microphone? 'Cause apparently, Yeah, but I want you guys to have it.
I heard it in the other microphone as well.
How's this? Is that choppy?
That's better.
No. Okay. All right. My guess is that once we've been doing this for 10 years, we'll start getting it right. I mean, we're only 5 years into Zooming Rashi class, so we're halfway through the learning period. Thank you, Hector.
Again.
I mean, it really is a wonder that we can do this in person and digitally, but when the technology stumbles a little bit, it is confounding and frustrating. We'll be up to Vayikra by then, the second time through. Were you done, Rick? I don't remember. Did you even start? You're done. Okay. Rachel, please. Let's give Rachel a microphone.
I just wanted to tell a story of someone I know, who many of you know, Lev Metz. He grows hyssop. He grows biblical herbs in his yard. He's become a passionate gardener. And he showed me all these weird plants, but one of them was hyssop. And he said he cooked for Pesach red beet juice. And he had the kids use the hyssop to paint the red beet juice.
Wow.
I guess that he covered the doorposts with some sort of paper, but he felt like this would be something they'd remember forever.
Totally.
And it's like, most people don't do this, but somebody did.
Yeah. I mean, what he's doing is very much in line with nearly every page of the 10th chapter of Masechet Pesachim, which says that how should you observe your Seder in any way that will allow have your kids be interested, curious, and want to ask questions. Everything else is commentary. So that's an amazing thing that he did, right? Particularly if he didn't cover his lentils, because I think beet juice tends to stain. Okay. Anyone else on this verse, Larry?
I hate to beat it to death, but I actually like whoever was talking. Maybe it was Rick. The Ushmartem is collective, and then the Chok Lecha is individual. And I'm just wondering about the Uvanecha, because what I would like to read this verse as is you all should keep this, whatever it is, I'm not going to focus on that, as a law for each one of you and for each one of your children. But I'm not sure that my reading is correct.
Yeah. I mean, it's correct grammatically.
So the Ulvanecha is first, is singular second person?
Habanim shelcha, addressing a single person about many children.
Right, because otherwise it'd be
Uvanechem,
right.
livnechem.
So I like it. I'm just agreeing with everyone.
You're liking your own interpretation.
Yeah, I like the fact that I think we're all in agreement. Pesach is maybe the most individual of all the holidays, and we all take great liberties and do our own things. And this verse is what gives us the freedom to do that.
I thought you were going to pull something slightly different out of that, but that's great too. That the verse is constructed to say that all of you should do this thing, such that you experience that you're individually obligated to keep it and pass it down to your children. And I'm telling this to all of you.
Right.
Yeah. Barry, then Rosemary.
The other part of what this is that we're all gathering in plural homes. You gather your family units into a gathered home, so it's not an individual.
Rosemary, then I see Paul's hand, then Rick's hand. I think it's again, or is it still? It's again. Okay.
We were talking about meat. In Middle East, even till now, the lamb is the only thing they eat, because cows and the masculine of cows, they are used for agricultural purposes. They never slaughter unless they are going to die or get old. Now there are tractors, of course, not everywhere, still they use that. So till now, I use always lamb, and some years ago I was in New York doing the Pesach for my son's family. We were there. I went to the butcher in Manhattan and I bought a big lamb. Everybody was asking, why do I buy it? And the butcher said, you are the only one who is doing the right thing, because nobody buys lamb. And there was a man, he asked me, how do I cook? And then he was so excited. He said, next year I will buy lamb.
Wow.
So it's just habits. And when there's slaughterhouses, they sell what they have.
Yeah.
And lamb is not so common in America.
Yeah. You're a trendsetter, Rosemary. Paul and then Rick.
Rabbi, I entered my own question. I've got a BDB handy. I was wondering what the root was for inscribe that becomes a statute or something prescribed. It's yeah.
The chok word?
Right.
Yeah. To inscribe, to engrave, to place a mark permanently, and then it got rendered as a law, which is written down in perpetuity. Yeah. Rick, and then Rebecca.
Okay, so it's a trope thing and a word thing. Ushmartem, the next sentence you have the same word with the same trope, and there it links to ha'avodah hazot, and then the next sentence links ha'avodah hazot to the Haggadah. So I just thought I'd point that out.
That you jump from Ushmartem to Ushmartem, and then Avodah to Haggadah. Yeah. Where do you see that it's linking to the Haggadah? You muted yourself, Rick.
The Ha'avodah Hazot is in 25, and then Ha'avodah Hazot again in 26. And then it's, what is this? When you're telling your children.
That the Haggadah uses that
what
verse.
The story.
Right. The Haggadah borrows that verse and puts it into the mouth of one of the four children. Got it. Right. Good. Rebecca. Let's give Rebecca the mic. Okay, but you should, yeah. Zoomers, is it more frustrating to wait longer in between when people have the mic, or to have a mic that doesn't work so well?
No,
okay.
It's worth the wait.
Okay, I wanted to go back to Rick and Larry's point about the Shmartem.
We can't hear her.
You can't hear Rebecca?
Can you hear me?
And we didn't hear, I don't know anything about what...
Okay, so this mic is not working either? Well, maybe this one is better than that. I don't know. Yeah, it's on.
Can you hear?
Yes, that was good.
Okay.
You can't hear this.
Apparently. Okay. But really put the mic on your mouth.
This is going to be very anticlimactic. But going back to Rick and Larry's discussion of Shmartem and Chok L'cha U'Levanecha Ad Olam, could it be that the point here is you all have to, observe this thing, but each one of you individually has to splash the blood all over the door, meaning you can't watch one of your kids do it. You all have to do it.
It's not to be delegated. So
right.
All of you, it's similar to what Larry's saying, all of you should hear this instruction that each of you is personally obligated. Yeah.
To splatter the blood.
Yeah. Ilan?
So I'm curious about the use of the word forever, right? You shall observe this matter as a decree for yourself and for your children. Why not just leave it at that? Nobody's going to think it's going to be for the next 2 weeks. It's the implication that would that be in perpetuity. It's interesting to me that there's a need for emphasis here. And I was curious whether there's other precedent for the use of that term, or there's something unique here that would make them use it.
For the Ad Olam?
Yes.
I mean, the only thing I can offer, Ilan, is that it's very hard for us to read these verses fully stripped from everything we know and have lived and experienced and inherited about these verses, right? So we are 3,000 years later, and of course it's in perpetuity, because if it weren't, we wouldn't know about it. But if you try to jump back into the moment, I guess you could say it's not at all a given that what that generation is being asked to do is something that 100 generations later is being asked to mimic. Right?
So are there other examples of laws in the Torah where they say, because I'm most laws that I know of don't have that, like the kashrut doesn't say forever, right? It's just so I'm curious if there are other examples, or is this one so important that they emphasized it?
I think it's slightly the reverse. Most laws are given with a very clear indication that this is going to be the law for the people, and it's not being told to the community who's doing it that time for the first time, right? Like the 10 Commandments are not addressed to people who are not honoring their mother and father and say, you all have to honor your mother, your father, and also it's something you have to do forever. It's being offered as a perpetual law. Whereas this, we're in a scene where people are being asked to do that commandment that night. And in addition to that, this is good in perpetuity. I'm trying to think if there's another moment where, it's sort of like the Brit Milah, right? I have to go back to the language. Avram is being told to do Brit Milah, and then it becomes something that his descendants do. But most of the mitzvot are given in the Torah with the concept of it being an everlasting thing, not to an individual character doing something in the moment. Right? And it's also the case that sometimes Ad Olam appears and sometimes it does not, and there's not a perfect pattern to that. Okay, Rashi is quiet on this verse. He has not been quiet in a very long time. So we'll do what we always do when Rashi's quiet, and that is to read at least one other commentary on the verse. So I'm going to share the screen. I wasn't planning on it, but we can do that afterwards if you like. But first we're going to do Kasuto. Umberto Consuta, we've studied him before. Remember, we had a long conversation about his commentary when it came to the kiln in the Sixth Plague. Italian commentator, 19th century, one of the first people to kind of straddle, a from Orthodox, the word Orthodox is anachronistic, but a from Orthodox approach to Torah study and also scientific acumen. Okay, so here's what he says. Achar kach, right after this, notein Moshe el hazkenim, Moses is about to give all the elders, horaot klaliot, general instructions, al Pesach dorot, on the obligation to do Pesach forever. Ukeshem shenemar lo pamayim ushmartem pasuk yud zayin. This instruction for that night, back in verse 17, look back at verse 17, everybody, where it says ushmartem twice. So verse 17, ushmartem et matzot, Freudian slip. You should protect these matzahs. Ki be'etzem hayom hazeh, because on this very day, hotzeti et tzivotechem, I will have brought out your hordes, Eretz Mitzrayim, from the land of Egypt. Ushmartem, double word, you should protect, keep. Et hayom hazeh, this day, ledoratechem chukat olam, you should give this to your generation forever and ever. This is so our verse 24 is not the first time this notion that what's happening that night is going to be happening forever, but it's in our part of the verse where the specific instructions are being given. And he says, just like it says ushmartem twice there, kachu omer lehem pamayim ushmartem. Also in our verse it says ushmartem twice. Ushmartem et hadavar hazeh, do this general thing at Chag HaPesach, this Pesach sacrifice, l'chok lacha uvanecha ad olam, and also ushmartem, that it happen forever and ever. So it's a double guarding, because the root shamar means to protect, guard, do, right? Do the action and do the ensuring that it's going to be done forever. And since it was doubled back then, it's being doubled in this verse. Okay? Rick.
So since you brought it up, I just thought I'd point out those first two ushmartems, the trope is very fancy. You have a zarka on the first one, da 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 da. Then you have a gershayim, da 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 da. It's very dramatic. But here, it's the very simple tipcha, which anybody can do. It's an easy thing.
Yeah, everyone can do it. And all the times I've taught Torah reading, it's somehow the hardest trup for someone to find out of context, not in the middle of a merachah clause. I don't know why. It just like, it's hard for people to just like find the tipcha if it's not part of a mercha, tipcha. I don't know why. But yes, it's a non-dramatic. Maybe that's why it's hard to find it, because it's so simple. Diane, and then Matt. Where's the working microphone? Matt, you start because you got it.
How do you know?
Yeah.
So I was looking at Ramban.
Wait, Diane, just make your comment very, very long. so we could force Matt to filibuster.
So I'm looking at Ramban, who says that this refers to the sacrifice of the lamb. And I'm just wondering why the Jews in Europe just sort of disregarded that piece altogether. Under what authority? Since this is Doraita, right? They just said, no, not doing the lamb.
Are you asking why they didn't do a sacrifice, or why they didn't consume the lamb?
Why they decided not only don't consume the lamb, but it was like absolutely forbidden.
Yeah.
This is not something. I mean, I understand the logic of this was done in temple times, and we don't have a temple anymore. That's right. This was right. So it's sort of bizarre.
Yeah. I mean, it is the case that what was being done that night got converted into being done in the Mishkan. We'll discuss that. It got converted into temple times. And when the temple was destroyed, it all went away and as being defunct. And then everything that was done Seder night was purely in the realm of honorific, right? And you're right, it went in two different directions. Part of the Jewish community said, let's honor it as closely as possible to how they did it. And some say, let the temple is gone, so we're going to have it be even more symbolic and farther away from that exact species. How that came to be, I don't know. But you're right to point out that there were two different reactions to the elimination of this as an actual halachic obligation, because we couldn't anymore because the altar was gone. Matt?
So now I have two things to talk about.
Closer to your mouth.
The first thing is I also, like many people or some people in my ignorance, made a lamb dinner once before we were vegetarian. And I was called on it at the table there, people saying, we don't do that.
For Pesach or just a regular night?
No, for Pesach.
Uh-huh.
And so I looked it up, and apparently it wasn't just a sort of whimsical decision not to do it. There are rulings in the Talmud, I think. The majority of rabbis say don't do it because it's too, I don't remember exactly, but don't do it because it's too much like the temple sacrifice or something like that. And there was a minority opinion who didn't hold that way. So I'm glad to be in the minority in that case. But we didn't do it again. But so there's that. And then the other thing I wanted to share was in Ibn Ezra about thing. What does thing mean?
Well, let me pull it up. Hold on, so everyone can see it.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I don't have to read it, but I can read it dramatically. Many of the Arabic.
Hold on.
Yeah. I'll do it in English. Do it in Yiddish.
Okay, this is Ibn Ezra.
Many are of the opinion that the placing of the blood on the lintel and on the two side posts is an obligation for all generations, because this thing is connected to the taking of the hyssop and dipping it into the lamb's blood. Furthermore, Scripture afterwards states, for that he passed over the houses. So it's very specific. Here, I like this part. This interpretation would be correct from a logical point of view, were it not for the true tradition, which states otherwise. The correct interpretation is that this thing refers to and kill the Passover. This meaning that it refers to the killing of the lamb. Is what it really means. It doesn't mean the hyssop.
Why do you think?
Why he doesn't say why that's true, and logic is not true.
Right. That's interesting. But he's right in that that's how it came out to be understood, right? That the obligation had to do with the korban, not the ritual of the hyssop. Yeah. Okay, good. Before we go on to the next verse, I will put this in the WhatsApp chat. A reminder: the next 2 Wednesdays are all and only on Zoom, so don't come here. But I'll put it in the WhatsApp chat. Okay, let's read verse 25. Norm, since you weren't able to come in person, we feel bad about that. Do you want to be our reader for verse 25?
Okay.
Speak a little bit louder.
This is V'hoya ki yomru aleichem b'neichem mohavodah hazos lochem.
No, I think you skipped verse 25.
That wasn't I'm sorry.
That was 26.
Ki savo el ha'oretz asher yatain Adonai lochem kasher deber ushmartem es havodah hazos.
Okay.
And it will come to pass when you come to the land which Adonai will give you, as he has said, that you will keep, guard, observe this service, worship.
Good. So if we compare verses 4 to 25, we've turned Ushmartem hadavar hazeh, this thing, into something a little more specific. Ha'avodah hazot, this avodah here means ritual, doesn't mean labor, right? And we've sort of limited or specified what adolam means. Adolam means unqualified forever, but verse 25 seems to say, but forever is not going to begin until get to the land. It seems to now be land-based, right? If you just had verse 24, it would suggest that what was being told to the elders is, we're doing it this night and every night, right? Next year and next year and next year. And now we're being told, even though we know it's going to take them 40 years to get the land of Israel, they don't know that. But we're now being told in verse 25, do it now. And then when you get to the land, start doing it again. And it doesn't say this explicitly, but you can hear the verse saying, and do it as long as you are in the land, right? You could hear from this, and if you are ever living in Pittsburgh, you don't have to do it. It doesn't say that, but there's an implication that might be, right? So let's see if there are comments, questions on the verse. I see Rachel's hand, and then we'll go around. Who had the mic? Matt.
Does this imply that I was thinking of painting the doorposts, and if you're in a tent, that is rather difficult. So does this imply that while you're moving from camp to camp, you skip it, but once you have a permanent dwelling, you do it?
That's very interesting, right? It reminds me of the machloket about tzitzit, right? There's a machloket in halacha, is tzitzit what they call chovat gavra or chovat mana. Chovat gavra means the obligation of the person. Chovat mana means the obligation of the object. If it's the chovat gavra, means you are obligated to wear a four-cornered garment and put tzitzit on it. If it's chovat mana, it means if you happen to be wearing a four-cornered garment, it requires tzitzit, right? The way practical halachas emerge is the former, right? If you're people who feel connected to that mitzvah, make sure they wear a talit katan, right? It seemed one of the several reasons why I don't wear talit katan at this stage of my life, I used to, is because I really became convinced that it's really chovat mana, that if I were wearing a four-cornered garment, then it would be obligated to tzitzit. But it doesn't mean that I have to put on a four-cornered garment in order to do that, right? So it reminds of this here. If you have shtei mezuzot and a mashkof, then do that. And if you don't, you don't. Or does it mean you should make sure you are living, at least when these laws obtain, in a hut that does that? Or was it Ibn Ezra who said, no, the thing that's in perpetuity is not the daubing, but the korban, in which case it has nothing to do with the structure of your home. Rebecca? Can we get that microphone to Rebecca?
Just from a practical experience,
yeah.
Our family went several years ago to an experiential third Seder in the desert. It was in Joshua Tree. And so the Seder was going to be in this huge tent that they erected. And beforehand, as part of arts and crafts and preparing, they had the kids paint with red paint the lintel and the doorposts on pieces of wood. And then they took them and attached them to this big tent. And it was really quite powerful to enter into the tent looking at and under this, the red blood, the red paint. So that's what they did.
Wow. Some interesting Seder experiences we're hearing about today. Larry.
So Alter has a comment which I think is a different perspective. And I'll read the comment and then I'll go back to the verse. And so when you come to the land, this is a pointed rupture of the time frame of the story.
It's a what?
A rupture, pointed rupture. In the midst of the breathless moment, that is the last evening of the Israelites in Egypt, as Moses enjoins them to smear their entranceways with protective blood, and narrative briefly leaps forward to a time when the Israelites, long ago liberated from Egyptian servitude, dwell in their land, and when a generation arises that scarcely knows the meaning of the commemorative Passover ritual, so that telling has to supplement the ritualistic showing. So if you look at this, the previous verse says you have to do it forever, and then this verse says, I don't buy the argument that you only have to do it once. You have to continue to do it. And then this verse is saying, and there will come a day when you will enter the land, you should still do it. And now you need to go to the next verse, just to jump ahead. Why do you have to, and when you do it, the people might just say, when is this right? So you have to tell them the story. So
because they will not have lived it.
They won't have lived it.
Yeah.
So it's a different generation. So if this verse is taken out of context, according to Alter, and he convinces me, and we can't just read it by itself. We have to have it as a connection between between the previous verse and the next verse.
Yeah. So we'll get to Rashi, who's going to disagree with Alter, and he has a little bit of textual proof to buttress his argument. Go ahead, in terms of whether or not this was obligatory throughout the time in the desert.
So if you think about this as a community with an oral tradition, not a written tradition, if they in fact had 40 years of not doing it, it's unlikely that they would have remembered to do it.
Yeah. So again, remember that when we read Rashi, because those two comments are particularly interesting given that. Barry and then Stevie?
That's an interesting perspective. It's the causative of doing it initially was to protect from the mashchit, but for the ad olam, the causative is to retell the story.
Yeah, right. Particularly if the thing that they're being asked to do ad olam is not the action that defended against the mashchit, but just the slaughter of the Pesach offering itself. Go ahead, Stevie.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with Alter and Larry that this is saying, like, when you get to the land, then you add this extra step to the procedure.
Keep doing it and then add this step.
Yeah, but I will point out, as what my mom referred to, perhaps, is in Baaloscha, we hear that in the desert, in the second year, they did the Pesach. It says, according to all the laws, and there's no mention of any, blood or doorposts.
Right. So that's where Rashi is going to bring us to, right? Without giving the store away, Rashi is going to say the fact. Well, I'll let Rashi speak for himself. I'm not suggesting you did. Okay, let's look at is there anything else on the verse itself? Okay, Norm, back to you. Why don't you read? Yeah. Oh, sorry, Norm, you're muted. You're muted. Norm. Hello, Norman. Norm. Norm, you're muted and your audio's off. This is an impossible situation. There's nothing we can do. Norm, can you hear us? Can you text him? Norm. Norm. It's like my instinct is to speak louder and he might hear me, but he can't. Hello, Norm, you are muted. You're muted. Oh, okay.
Okay. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, V'hoya ki savo el horetz.
Yes.
Tola hakasuv avoda zu b'viosam la'oretz.
Okay, pause there. Tala. What does tala litlot mean?
So the obligation is dependent on coming into the land. V'lo nisyavu v'amidbar, not required in the midbar. Ela Pesach echad, except for the first Pesach, she'asu v'ashana hashenis, which was observed in the second year. V'al hadibur, and that only because of an additional saying or word or commandment.
Okay, good. So let's break that down a bit. When Rashi says talah hakatuv, litlot means to hang. It means dependent on the sense that it's hanging on the hook, right? If something is talui b'davar, it's dependent on a thing, right? What's the line from Pirkei Avot that ha'ahava shetluya b'davar eina mitkayemet? If your love is dependent on a certain thing, the love will not last, because if the thing is gone, the love will be gone. But if your love and commitment is not talui, hanging on a particular thing, it has a chance of lasting. So Rashi says that the verse hangs this avodah, this ritual, parentheses, is the ritual of the sacrifice, is the ritual of the daubing, we don't know, but it hangs this ritual, beviatam la'aretz, with their arrival in land, disagreeing with the altar, saying that the only time when this becomes obligatory, according to Rashi, is when you get to land, except v'lo nidchayevu b'midbar, they were not obligated generally in the desert, ela b'pesach echad, except 1 year. What year? She'asu b'shana hashenit, that they did in the second year, as Stevie made reference to, al pi hadibur, because it was explicitly commanded. And I want to bring up that verse because it's from it's not from Shemot, so you don't have it in front of you. 1 second. So this is Parshat Balotcha. It also ends up being one of, unlike Sukkot, where every day of Chol HaMoed, the Torah reading is basically the same, just a different day of the korbanot that were brought. Pesach, every day of Chol HaMoed Pesach is an entirely different Torah reading, because Pesach is mentioned so many different times in the Torah, including this one. I don't remember if this is the second or the third day of last day of Chol HaMoed. Okay, so we basically read this section on Chol HaMoed Pesach. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe, God said to Moses, B'midbar Sinai, in the desert, B'shana hasheni, let's say Tam Eretz Yisrael, in the second year after they left, so a year later, B'chodesh Harishon, on the first month, saying, Vayasu v'nei Yisrael et ha'pasach b'modo. The Israelites need to do the Pesach in its time, which Rashi is reading as God saying to Moses to tell the Israelites, this year, just like last year when they were doing it in a story, now they do it as a commemoration. But Rashi is reading God telling Moses that they did it that year and no other year. It's not the only way to read it, but that's the way Rashi is reading it. And it continues, Arba'asar Yom B'chodesh Hazeh, on the 14th day of the month, just like last year, Bein Harabayim, between the evenings, like last year, Tasu Odo B'moado, do it in its time, Kechol Chukotav, and all of its chok, all of its laws, Uchachol Mishpatav, and all of its statutes, Tasu Oto, do it. Right? Again, you can ask the question, are they being commanded to daub or just slaughter? We don't know, right? Vaydaber Moshe b'nei Israel, and there Moses took that instruction that God said to him, Lasot HaPasach, to make them do it. And it's the only time in the Torah where the people of the desert are actually given the instruction to do it. Do we know it didn't happen the third year? No, but Rashi is reading from it that only happened the second year. Okay, I see Barry's hand. Was your hand up? You were sneering, Larry. I don't know if that's considered a hand up. You were, yeah, your face was contorted in a contemptuous. Go ahead.
So we know there are no commands that have no purpose to it. So the functionality of the korban in the first year is to get the blood and do the doorpost because of mashchit. In the second year, there's no mashchit. There's no purpose for doing that.
Good.
So the only purpose of it in the korban is to remember God and what God did to us.
Great. The korban can serve as a memory of the event, but we're no longer defending against the mashchit. Very good, Barry. Larry.
Yeah, I'll ask the question, but then why only in the first year?
Because that's the only time God asked them to do.
It makes no
You're
sense.
questioning God?
No, I'm questioning Rashi. I mean, I can probably come up with 12 different reasons for why it's not logical
Right.
that that God would want Israelites only to repeat this in the first year.
Right.
And I'm surprised that Rashi offers nothing else except for in Bamidbar chapter 9.
Because that's the only other time they're told.
Right. But there's no logical reason. It's not compelling.
Right. So Rashi might say back to you, the very fact that it's not logical is what makes it compelling. Right? Because it's also not logical that God would have told him to do it once and only once, and yet the record is that God told him to do it once and only once. So the religious argument might be the illogical nature of it is what shows that that's what God had in mind.
I would take that even further then.
Okay.
I would say to Rashi, if that's the case, then we can never make any assumptions, or we can never what's the word?
Infer?
Infer. We can never infer that something happened in the future. We must be complete literalists. Only those things were specifically transmitted by God are the only times that things happen. And that's not consistent with Rashi's approach in general.
Yeah. Stevie, let's get that microphone down to him. Sorry. Oh. It rolled the wrong way.
I'll say in Sefer Malachim, when they observe Sukkot, there's like explicit mention of, and they haven't done this in a long time, but in the book of, the next time we hear about Pesach is in the book of Joshua, and it makes no mention of, and they didn't do this for a long time. It just says they did it. They just said like, oh, they got to the land of Israel and they did it.
Right.
Or like,
to which Rashi could say, see?
Yeah, right. He could say it's the first time in the land of Israel, but it just, right.
Yeah. I'm not, when I'm being Rashi's defense attorney, it's not because I think he's necessarily right, but I want to read his comment as generously as possible and at least understand his logic, even if we disagree with it.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, anything else on that Rashi? There's one more Rashi on the verse. It's a short Rashi. Norm, can you keep reading the next Rashi?
Yes, kasher deber, as he said, v'hechin deber, and where did he promise this or say this? In chapter 6, verse 8, v'haviosi eschem el ha'oretz v'no, and I will bring you into the land.
Good. So Rashi's asking a question that didn't come up as we were looking at the verse. When the Torah in this verse says kasher diber, as God said, and the reference is to the entering the land of Israel, Rashi says, where has God promised that where we're ending up in this journey is the land of Israel? And the answer is God did. Go back to chapter 6, verse 8. We haven't mentioned it in a long time. It's all about Exodus night. It's not been for a long time, I think since the burning bush, that the goal of all this is not just getting out of Egypt, but getting to the land. But go back to chapter 6, verse 8 in Shemot, and you might find some of these, this context familiar, because it's the place from which we get the rather convenient notion that the 4 cups of wine are related to the 4 languages of redemption that God uses in these verses, except that God uses more than 4 verbs. It's just that we stopped counting at 4, right? So if you look at chapter 6, verse 6 in Shemot, Lachain amor livnei Israel, therefore say to the people of Israel, Ani Adonai am God, count, hotzeiti enchem, I'm going to bring you out, mitachat sivlot Mitzrayim, from underneath the burdens of Egypt, v'hitzalti enchem, I'm going to save them from their burdens, that's 2, v'ga'alti enchem b'zroa netuyah, I'm going to redeem you with an outstretched arm, uveshvatim dolim, and then the beginning of the next verse, v'lakachti enchem lila'am, and I'm going to take you to be my people. So we've got Hotzeiti, Hitzalti, Ga'alti, Lakachti, which means that there are only 4 things that God is promising, except that God promises other things. Next verse, V'hayiti lachem Elohim, next phrase, I'm also going to be for you as a God. And if you go to the beginning of verse 8, this is the verse that Rashi is quoting, V'heveti etchem el eretz, and that's at least a 5th action item, right? That it was not 4 languages of redemption, it was really 5. 4 to get you out, and then 1 to get you in. And that hasn't been spoken about in the intervening chapters a whole lot. And so Rashi's saying, you, reader, might have forgotten that when God originally lays out this plan to get them out, God also made a promise to get them in. So when God says in our verse, right? Or sorry, when Moses says in our verse, when we go to the land which God has said, and you're thinking, well, has God said that? Yes, back at the burning bush when God was promising the trajectory. So we hadn't asked that question, Rashi did. Okay, questions on Larry? Yeah, good. No, that's all right.
Sorry.
That's all right.
I'm in my dumping on Rashi mode. In Joshua, where the Israelites observed the Pesach for the first time, God doesn't tell Joshua. They just said Joshua did it, or the people did it. So the fact that they did, if I'm right, the fact that they did it suggests that they were doing it.
No, Rashi would say the fact that they did it suggests that Joshua knew the 12th chapter of Shemot. When God said, when you get, because God said, Joshua, do I have to tell you again? Didn't you read Parshat Bo? And you could, either way, you could still say, yes, he got there and he remembered. Oh, wait, what is that thing I had to do when I got to the land of Israel? Oh, right, do the Pesach. Rashi's comments are they're hermetically sealed. You can't get out of them. Stevie, every other comment today has been in the exact opposite corner of the table. On the one day, we only have one moving microphone.
I guess to defend Rashi here, the book of Joshua does explicitly state that the people who left Egypt had been circumcised, but those born in the desert were not circumcised. And you could therefore darshan out that if they weren't circumcised, they obviously weren't doing Pesach. So
good. Okay, let's read verse 27. We'll get to the verse, probably not the Rashi's. Verse 26. Verse 26. Verse 26. See, I slowed it down for you, Matt. We're only going to do verse 26. Tova, you want to read verse 26? Let's give her the microphone. But you're right, Matt. This is the third verse we will have been dealt with today, and that's unacceptable. What did he say? Even I hear that doesn't sound good. The microphone. Are you using the mic that was just being used?
Yeah. Did that sound bad?
It does. Did that sound bad to you on Zoom? Yeah.
Well.
All right. Maybe since we have 3 minutes left, let me just do it. So let me just do it. Yeah. Sorry, Tova. Sure. And it will be when your children, according to Silverstein, say to you, Ma ha'avodah hazot lechem, what is this ritual to you? The pasuk ends, but the sentence doesn't end, because a phrase that begins with a when should resolve it, right? The resolution of it is verse 27. And you know this verse from which of the four sons? The wicked son, which is so interesting. I'm sure you've dealt this with us at some point in your Seder. The way the rabbis put the question in the mouths of the sons is not honoring how the questions appear in the verse, because this is a wonderful question, right? This is when you finally get to the land of Israel and you do it, and your children say, Mom, Dad, we haven't done this for 40 years. What is this thing? They're expressing curiosity. They're expressing wonder. They want to know. They're not saying, when is this thing to you, right? So the midrash of the four sons is a wonderful midrash, but it's very cut and paste, right? In context, it's just they're asking you, what is it? What does this thing mean to you? Okay? And not even to you. Which is, what is this thing? What is this thing that you're doing? Any questions on the verse? Rashi's quiet on it, but I have one commentator bring, which we have time for, unless someone has a question on the verse, comments on the verse. Okay. So let me pull up the non-Rashi. 1 second. Okay, we're going to look at Sforno on this. Okay, Rabbi Ovadia Sforno, medieval Italian rabbi. Okay. on the phrase, everyone see it up there? Ma avodah hazot lechem. What is this avodah, this ritual to you? He's trying to understand what is the content of that question. Is it a general question? What is this thing? And he kind of imagines, and this is the opposite of the wicked child. The way that Sforno is about to read this question could only be asked by the Chacham. It's like a peculiar halachic moment, and he wants to know the details. She'eina b'yom mikra kodesh. This is a sacrifice that we're being asked to do that's not on a yontif, right? Other holiday korbanot are done on the holidays. This is done when? Just before, the sunset before. So, eina b'yom mikra kodesh kashar harbor korbanot. It's not on the day called the mikra kodesh like the other sacrifices related to days. V'lo toch zman sha'ara korbanot. It's not within the time frame of the other sacrifices. Shehu mitamid shel shachar ad tamid shel ben arbaim. You have all day to do the other yontif sacrifices. This sacrifice you can only do when? But not just on the day of. When on the day of? Bein harabayim, right? At sunset. V'lama lo yaspik korban echad. Why isn't a single korban sufficient? L'chol Yisrael, for all the Jewish people, kamo b'sha'ar korbanot. Other similar sacrifices that have to do with public recognitions of days. It's not that each individual Israelite has to do it. Why this? So Sforno says the kinds of questions that your very well-trained yeshiva bachar students are going to ask is not just what is Korban Pesach, but why is this sacrifice different than all other sacrifices, right?
It seems
microphone.
Such as it is.
Yes.
It seems more narrowly regulated than other sacrifices.
Right. And Sforno was imagining that the Torah is anticipating that those are the level of questions that your offspring are going to ask, and you'd have good answers for them. So it's sort of sweet that Sforno, again, quite anachronistically imagines the young Israelite boy in the first year they enter the land of Israel ask these kinds of art scroll type questions, right? But I suppose he's reacting to the fact that otherwise it just seems like a silly question. What is this thing? Well, you're seeing what this is, and the assumption is that they have heard the story even if they weren't doing the desert. So it must be about a particular thing that they're picking up on, which is different. Which again is the whole theme of Seder night. We do things differently, so our kids will ask questions. Norm, is your hand up from before? When I get a last comment?
I think there's something very important here because God is telling us, among other things, that we're going to have children who ask about Pesach. And that's really a very positive thing. This question is that we have a tradition that portrays it as being rather negative. But isn't that what almost every one of us wants, is to have children who will be interested and inquire about Pesach and what it means to us, and not merely what are the technicalities?
Great. Remember that when we get to a future Rashi about the Besorot Tovot, the glad tidings that are being prophesied in these verses. All right, next 2 weeks, Zoom only. Okay? I'll put it in the chat. Have a good day, everybody.
You've been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast website or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information on Temple Beth Am, Los Angeles, please visit www.tbala.org.